Let's start when you wake up. What's your poison when you wake up? Tea? Coffee? Mine is a little different.
Don't worry, it's just cold brew coffee.
Most people prefer some caffeine in the morning. That's okay, that's no problem. The problem is the thing that comes with the caffeine. Cookies, namkeen, bhujia, toasts, Maggie, and all kinds of stuff.
Now, it's not that cookies are bad or anything, fattening or anything, not at all. You can have your cookies every day, that's no problem. The point I'm trying to put forth here is that it's kind of a bad idea to start your day with that, to start your day with sort of like comfort and pleasure. It's the equivalent of just opening your Instagram right after you wake up, or just starting to watch like your favorite Netflix series right after you wake up. You definitely don't want your day to start with comfort and pleasure. When you wake up, you always want to, you're like up and fresh. You always want to, take some work that needs some effort to just build momentum in the right direction.
So instead of going for a pack of biscuits or Maggie or whatever, get few raw fresh ingredients together and maybe cook up a healthy breakfast for yourself.
The point here is not to have breakfast, or breakfast is the most important meal of the day or anything like that. Not at all. The point is to do something that needs work. That is it.
Speaking of biscuits and Maggie, storing readily available processed hyper palatable foods in your house is really the biggest hurdle you can put in between you and your goals. You see, we are byproducts of our environment. Without the proper environment set in place, you would just be fighting a continuous battle with your cravings. It's okay to enjoy some junk food, just don't stock it up at your home. It is much harder to moderate on 2 cookies when they are literally like 7 steps away from your bedroom. The catastrophe is just like one yawn of boredom away. Speaking of boredom,
are you really hungry or are you just bored? This is going to sound very counterintuitive, but the more ways you find to actually kill your boredom, the more your boredom is actually going to increase.
And the more you try to distract yourself by eating tasty food, the lesser your attention span becomes. The solution? Live the boredom until it lasts. Don't run away from it. And honestly, it doesn't last very long. Stop feeding this vicious cycle and it runs its course.
Vicious cycle. There's actually another one in your life that is making you fat. There are actually several vicious cycles. Like in my life, there are like fucking million vicious cycles. Like on every single step, I don't know why I just keep self-sabotaging. What? This video is not about me? Okay. Alright. Back to the vicious cycle that makes you fat.
This one is observed the most in people who have a tendency to gain weight, who have fat genetics. Is the demand for variation in food, the demand for a varying palate experience.
Now, believe it or not, your worst enemy in making you lose weight is your inability to eat regular homemade food every single day.
This, in fancy talk, is called food reward.
Now, overweight and obese people have this thing in their brain called food reward. Food reward is basically a very a sort of high they get when they eat food. You know how drug addicts basically get a high when they snort on cocaine or do some kind of a drug or something like that. Just like that, not just drug addict, but if you take like 100 people in a room and give them cocaine, all of them are going to feel that reward in their brain. You know how they just mood just lights up, cognition just lights up, it just go into the fucking clouds, and you're just basically God at that point when you snort a line of cocaine or something like that, right? So the similar kind of thing happens with people who have kind of these fat genetics, who have a tendency towards gaining weight. When they eat something that is really, really fucking tasty, they get a high out of that food. Now, that is nearly not as comparable to the high you get from cocaine, 100%, but it's a similar thing. There's a huge difference in intensity, but the obese people with fat genetics get a high reward when they eat tasty food. And just like how a drug addict would be needing more and more higher and higher dosage of a certain drug to experience the same reward, just like that, an obese person with fat genetics is going to need a varying palate experience. That means he or she would want to eat different kinds of food, different kind of tasty foods every single day in order to stimulate themselves, in order to keep them, sane up there. So this is one of the reasons they cannot eat homemade regular food every single day. This is why most of the obese people really get bored if you just tell them to eat just normal homemade bland food every single day. All of these people who have fat genetics get a huge dopamine spike when they eat tasty food.
And what do dopamine spikes do? They make you addicted.
Now I want to make this thing very clear, okay? If you think you are someone like this that gets a high food that has a high food reward, you get a high when you eat tasty foods, then I want you to know that this is not your fault, okay? You don't have to blame and hate yourself because you are one of these people. This is completely genetics. You're not at fault like at all, okay? We all have our deck of cards, we all have our own problems. Yours just happen to be food reward.
Now, there is a way to decrease this reward, and it's simple. It's just to not feed into it. Just like boredom, it's a vicious cycle that has to run its course. Meditation might help a ton here. I have made a video on it that you can check out.
The more you are going to feed into that demand of eating a varying variation in food or eating different kinds of food every single day, the more you are going to feed into that demand, the more you are going to feed into that behavior pattern. So the only solution to get out of this is to eat the same old regular homemade food every single day. The same home cooked, bland, low reward food. And yes, this is a tough diet to follow, which brings us to the next point. To show up. To show up doesn't matter what. This is hard. This is always going to be hard. This is always going to be 100% out of your comfort zone for the rest of your life. Okay? Every single day when you're going to wake up, all the things that stop you from achieving your goals, your cravings, your boredom, your apathy, your laziness, everything is going to be there every single day. And it's going to be a new, fresh battle every single day. If you want to get to the goal that you have decided, you're going to have to fight a new battle every single day.
Steven Pressfield, the author of very famous book The War of Art, calls this resistance. To quote Pressfield, most of us have two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the two stands resistance.
His theory is that there is an invisible force in nature called resistance. And the only job of this resistance is to stop you from doing your work. Literally every single human being on this planet has and does discover resistance, does face resistance on a day-to-day basis. And it's going to show up every single day no matter what. And to yield to this resistance, to get defeated by this resistance is basically death. To yield to this resistance is to not be what we are truly meant to be.
So don't try to make this easy. Don't try to find a hack in this. Don't try to find a shortcut out of this. If you want results, it needs work. Hard work every single day. And to do that, you always just need the first step: to show up.